Well, today is really a very simple question for us to ponder. How do you respond to blessings from God? Very simple question. How do you respond to blessings from God? On one hand, it's easy to respond in frustration and anger when we feel that God doesn't hear us or God didn't respond in our prayer the way we would have liked. But how do you respond when that prayer is answered? That prayer brings you some relief or some answer to a problem or question or some particular joy. How do you respond when some blessing really is given to you? Is your response to go and build an altar and turn from false idols to worship God? That's what happened in the first reading. Naaman, in the first reading, realizing he was healed, that's exactly what he did, and taking that earth back with him to worship the God of Israel. Do you sing a song of praise, as the psalm challenges us to do today? Do you return to give thanks and praise, as did the Samaritan leper, the least likely to do so because the Samaritans and the Jews did not get along, least likely to turn back, but he was the only one. The 9 Jewish lepers did not come back. Are we like that Samaritan leper, maybe the least likely to turn and give praise and thanks to God? Or sometimes maybe we're more like the 9. Once we get what we need, we kind of move on our way. So the simple question, how is it that you really respond to blessings from God? It's easy to overlook blessings from the Lord. It's easy to become ungrateful or to have an take it for granted type of attitude, either as a person or even for us as a society. We can take things for granted. I suppose maybe that's what was going on with the 9 lepers who did not come back, even though they were healed. They quickly forgot what Jesus did for them. Cultivating, as we would say, the attitude of gratitude, that attitude of thanksgiving, not only helps us to respond to God and His blessings, but also to respond in faith during difficult times when we suffer. And certainly that's what the second reading is about today, Paul's disposition as he writes to Timothy. Even though he is suffering greatly, he recognizes God is faithful in all things and that there are blessings even in the midst of suffering. How is it that we respond to God? Well, as I mentioned, tomorrow, the 12th of October, is the feast day of St. Carlo Acutis. And someday I will give a long explanation why I have such great devotion to this young man. You can breathe easy. It will not be a long explanation today, But I won't warn you when it's coming either, But by now, hopefully you know he died in 2006. The first saint of the millennial generation. He was only 15 years of age when he died in 2006. And from his earliest days, he allowed faith to grow within him. And he sparked faith in others. He brought his own parents back to church. His mother, by her own admission, said, "I was only to church 4 times in my life. The day I was baptized, the day I made my first communion, the day I got married, and the day we took Carlo to be baptized. Those were the only 4 times she went to church." But because of Carlo, at a very, very young age, his devotion to the Lord, he brought his parents back to church. He came from wealth and privilege, and servants in their house who were non-Christian, non-baptized, because of his devotion as a small child, they converted and were baptized. His teachers in school If you read about him, they will say he was a very joyful and generous child, and he had an awesome sense of humor. He regularly stood up for those who were being bullied. He was a young man with great courage. And he was very humble. He hid, really, the fact that he came from wealth and position in society. At the age of 9, now put this in your head, at the age of 9, he was already reading college textbooks in the area of computer science. He was very gifted in the sciences, and particularly the computers. And at the start of the new millennium, he was already designing websites as a child, having taught himself various computer languages. In 2003, at the border of becoming a teenager, at 2003, he used his technology skills and his knowledge of the internet to begin a work of cataloging the 150 Eucharistic miracles of the world into a website that's still used today. If you remember when we had his relics here a couple years ago, this very weekend, we had panels set up all weekend in the gathering room. Those panels are printed off of his website. That is the work that he did. And he did this. Why? He did this because he struggled to see people who did not believe in the Eucharist. And he struggled when he saw people who were indifferent when it came to the Eucharist. Carlo was, among many, many things, a faithful steward of God's gifts and blessings, and used those gifts and blessings back as a gift to the Lord. Stewardship, by definition, really is the grateful response of a Christian disciple who recognizes and receives God's gifts and freely shares these gifts for the love of God and the love of neighbor. And so the simple question, how is it that you respond to God's gifts in your life? We are to use our talents and our gifts as Carlo did, those entrusted to us not for personal gain, but rather for the glory of God, to enrich others, to serve our neighbors. So what talents and abilities do you have? And again, how do you use them? Today is, if you haven't really guessed already, one of the 3 Sundays we talk about stewardship. And this Sunday is the Stewardship of Talent Sunday. Just as St. Carlo had many talents, gifted in computer technology, sensitivity to the poor, a very joyful spirit, great devotion and understanding of the Eucharist and relationship with the Blessed Mother, and the list can go on and on and on. Just as Carlo used his gifts to serve others, and maybe we would think a teenager who dies from leukemia at 15 in 2006 would have been the least likely to become the first saint of the millennial generation. Could you begin to imagine what you and I could accomplish as a parish and as a family of parishes if we did the same? Unfortunately, only about 7% of our parish and family of parishes are involved in ministries within the church and in the name of the church to the larger community. Could you begin to imagine where we would be if we were all like Carlo? Well, this is precisely why we're taking this month of October to encourage us all to really be aware of those gifts and to be good stewards of the many gifts that God has given you. And there are many ways you can do that through the many, many ministries that our parish has. We're very blessed. Last year we had a very nice response, and this weekend where we focused on talent, we specifically focused on the liturgical ministries, like to be a server or a lector or Eucharistic minister, and like music ministry, those liturgical ones. This year we are very focused on the service-orientated ones, like the St. Vincent de Paul Society, the Knights of Columbus, the Columbiates, Knights of Columbus actually, and the Columbiates are in the vestibule this weekend to learn more about their ministry. And it doesn't really need, if you become part of one of these ministries, it doesn't need to be overburdening or overwhelming in any way, shape, or form. The gifts that you have and the measure you've received, use them in the same measure as the gift back to the Lord. And I know you can do that, without question. And to do that apart from just attending Mass and celebrating the Eucharist, of course, this is the source and the summit, but to allow this to fuel our service. And at this time, I ask if you're at the end, you've got cards in the pews, these little postcard-looking things, and it lists the various ministries, and it should be up on the board there too, on the screen. And it lists some of the service ministries. It's got a QR code. See, Carlo would be very proud of us right now, cutting-edge QR codes. And if you pull out your phone, today I'll let you do that in church. You can pull out your phone, you use the QR code, it's going to give you a whole list, the complete list of everything ministry-wise by way of ministries of service we have here at St. Greg's and throughout the family of parishes. And I ask you to pass those cards so everybody has one and a pencil to work with and to review that card. Maybe you're already doing some of these, and if so, I thank you. But I ask all of us to pick one thing. Can you begin to imagine where we would be if every one of us did just one thing? In a moment, we're going to have a couple moments of Paco on the piano, and to give us that time to pray and to reflect, to look at that, maybe to use that QR code. And as you do, I thank you, and I remind you, who would have thought back in the early 2000s that a young kid from Milan would become a saint? And he became a saint because he took every talent he had from the Lord and gave it back as a brilliant gift. You and I have the invitation to do the same, to be of that great service as was Carlo, in this place and time. And who knows, years from now, where that may lead not only our parish, our family of parishes, our diocese, but the entire world.